I am here with a friend and a mentor and a living legend. Give me one more good adjective for you.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about this guy right across from me.
Me?
We're pretty much dressed the same. I feel good about this.
Thrill of a lifetime.
We did this once. That was the thrill of a lifetime the first time, and now it's less than a year later.
Well,
Already
to
you're
sit
thrilling
with,
me again.
I can only imagine what it must be like to sit with legends.
So what I want to start with you this time, because we did a lot of personal stuff last time, is sort of the state of the media. Because it seems to me we're in a strange time with the media where there's the mainstream media that nobody seems to trust, and now there's the online media, which is exploding, and it seems that nobody knows who to trust anymore. How do you decide who you trust?
Well, my trust comes from experience, which is a great way to do it. So I trust in the main, the CBSs, the NBCs, the ABCs. I trust CNN. I worked at CNN for 25 years. I don't buy these stories of plots at networks, or I don't trust Fox. I don't trust MSNBC. I don't regard them as really news networks, but they're more preaching to choir networks.
Yeah. So you think there's a distinct difference between the cable news guys and the traditional networks?
Oh, absolutely. News. CNN does try to report fairly. CNN is in a difficult position because there's so much today is soapbox stuff. Mm-hmm. So they've got Fox on the right and MSNBC on the left, and CNN straddles it, so they're carrying a lot of documentary. I don't know where they are.
Yeah.
But I respect them.
Yeah.
The mainstream, I still trust the mainstream media. I think, though, that a lot, like Tea Parties and the like, have made you try to distrust the mainstream media. But I have never seen, I've been in the business 58 years. I keep telling this to people who come over to me, they tell me CNN hates Israel, or this guy. I have never been in a meeting where someone said, let's go get somebody.
Right.
Let's angle the story this way. Let's twist it. I have never seen that.
So at the end of the day, is it really just about what people will watch more than an agenda? Because that's what I see all the time. People comment, especially online, you get a lot of the conspiracy people, and they say, oh, this one has this agenda, or this one's owned by this one or that. But to me, it always comes down to what people will watch and click. So if there's a riot, they're going to cover a riot more than they would be inclined to cover a rally for peace, right? Because it's just what people will turn on.
Well, news is, well, first, personally, I never had an agenda. I never went on the air to hurt someone or to boost someone. I just try to ask good questions and listen to them.
You're not boosting me right now?
No, well, you're interviewing me.
Oh, right.
So you forgot where you are, David. I never had an agenda. I trust the New York. I know print media is in trouble. I trust the New York Times. I think it's the greatest newspaper I've ever read, and every day it gets better. And I've never seen a paper that introduces me and opens up doors to me better than the New York Times. And the New York Times, frankly, and in some cases the Washington Post, the LA Times, but mainly the New York Times. Television networks follow the New York Times. It's based, a lot of what they cover is what the New York Times is showing them what to cover.
Sure.
I have great respect for the New York Times.
So the cable news part of it, this hyper-partisan thing that we see all the time, where Fox is obviously to the right. Some people say they're not even to the right, they're just a sort of offshoot of the Republican Party. MSNBC is giving you Democrat talking points, CNN, as you said, somewhere in between. What do you make of this idea that it's constantly two people screaming at each other?
Well, it's not my kind of broadcasting.
Yeah.
The problem with those shows, to me, is I don't learn anything.
Yeah.
To me, when I watch a show, I want to know more than I knew before I watched the show. In these screaming shows, I see screaming, but I don't know more. I don't see many good interviewers.
Yeah.
I see the host on. If you turn on a TV show on a regular basis and the host is on more than the guest, that's a bad show.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And yet people seem to want screaming.
Well, because
that's
they like it.
Right?
What's like you mentioned, if there's a riot in the streets and a peaceful protest, you're going to cover the riot. For example, I'll tell you a newscast that wouldn't do well. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Every school in America today experienced no problems. There were no guns at any school today, and there were no hit-and-run accidents in major cities.
Yeah.
You're tuning off.
You're not going to watch that.
Right. So news is that which is not the ordinary.
Yeah. So then wrapping up this topic, how do you feel about being, you obviously came from the mainstream, and what you do now, you're still talking to mainstream people, but it's in the digital space. How do you like being in this sort of next step?
To me, I'm doing
place?
what I've always done. Since 1957, when I broke in, I've asked questions, listened to answers, tried to follow up. I'm being distributed differently. I was distributed first on a local station.
Yeah.
Then I had a national radio show. Then satellites. And then there was CNN, it was worldwide. And now the internet. But I'm doing the same thing. There's this, what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Could have been a radio show in 1935.
Yeah, one day we're going to be doing this on Snapchat. That'll be it. It'll be 2 seconds long. So I want to talk about what everyone's talking about right now, which is race in America. So obviously there was this shooting in Charleston. I just heard just on the way here now that Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott, both senators from South Carolina, are calling for the Confederate flag to be taken down.
Well, they woke up.
They finally woke up. I saw your tweet about it. I mean, they finally
The
woke
Confederate
up.
flag is treason.
Yeah.
It is a sign of an era that is the worst mark in the history of this country. Slavery is the black mark, no pun intended, on the American landscape. And the Dixie
So what would you
flag,
say? The people that say, well, this is Southern pride. It's our heritage.
I would say it's baloney.
Yeah.
Your Southern pride, your heritage is slavery. You like that heritage, right? That's the good old days. The good old days was depression. And no, that wasn't the good old days. That was the bad old days.
Yeah.
And when you put that up, you're black citizens, and they vote in your state. South Carolina might have more black voters than white voters. And you do that as the symbol, and now these two senators are saying, well, we ought to take it down. Come on.
Yeah.
They knew it was wrong 40 years ago.
Yeah. And isn't it an interesting piece with Tim Scott, particularly, who's an African-American senator, Republican from the South, I believe the only one, that it took him even this long. So that just shows you how this stuff is so ingrained, right?
Black Republican senators, I've interviewed many of black congressmen, and blacks who are Republican amaze me how they come to their rationale, like gay Republicans, how they come to their rationale when they see how the main party votes.
Yeah. Well, to me, with the gays, it seems so sad that if you were a gay person, that you would have to vote Democratic because you feel that you have to vote on this one issue, which marriage should be such a small piece of what you would actually
It should be,
on.
but when it comes into the gut feeling is, Tip O'Neill said all politics is local. And when something hits your gut, if you're a black American, you can say, which party has stood up more for me?
Yeah.
The blacks always were Republicans until the party turned against them, and the Democrats to the South.
Right,
were,
Southern strategy and the whole
yeah, that kind of thing were terrible.
Yeah. So what do you make of the state of race in America in 2015? So you've interviewed everybody for as long.
Well, we've had a black president.
Did you think this is where we were going to be 6 years
thought
into his
we've come a long way.
Yeah.
In fact, you can disagree with Obama. I've disagreed with him. But the temper of the disagreement is particularly distressful. It's racist. A lot of it is groomed in racism.
Yeah.
When Mitch McConnell said we were out to beat him the first day he took office, that was a terrible thing to say as an American.
Right.
That was a terrible thing to say. Why would you say that?
Right. It's bad for the nation, regardless.
Rush Limbaugh, I hope he fails. That's a good American. I hope he fails.
Yeah.
May the country fall down.
It's good for ratings.
What absurdity that is. That's absurd.
Yeah. So removing Obama from the equation, where do you think the general state of racism is? Because it seems that a lot of people think it's worse than ever. I don't think it's as systemic as ever, but we have major problems.
Well, in some senses, it's great. I mean, we've made tremendous advances. I mean, blacks in position of power, key blacks in the head of the Hayden Planetarium is black. One of the richest Americans is black. The strides have been great. They're 4-star generals. Come on. You got to admit, we elected a black president.
Yeah, yeah.
But then on the other hand, there's still that insidious part. It's a minority, But it's a dangerous minority that would go shoot up a church.
Yeah. So speaking of those guys, what do you make? So now everybody, there seems to be this big debate. Was this a hate crime or a terrorist attack? And a lot of people are saying, well, if a Muslim had done this, of course, we all would have said this was a terrorist attack. But because this is a white guy, we're not saying a terrorist attack. It seems obvious to me this is a hate crime and an act of terror. He was trying to terrorize these people.
Well,
Where do you
I call it hate crime. Terrorist attack to me is when a nation or a body of people attacks civilians. And civilians bear the brunt of it.
Right. So as a lone wolf.
If I do a suicide thing and go into the neighborhood and blow up people who aren't in the military, if you're fighting the military and it's a war, that's not terrorism. Mm-hmm. So this is both terrorism. It is a terrorism of sorts, but it's first a hate crime.
Yeah.
The guy hates blacks and he went and shot them.
Yeah. So where do we go from here for the national discussion?
Well, first we should be discussing it. We should be educating more. People should be discussing. It's not on the second tier. It should be on it should be a top tier.
Yeah.
It should be discussed a lot. Mm-hmm. It should be discussed a lot in the places where it should be discussed at Tea Party meetings and at meetings in the South. It should be discussed Sunday mornings at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and which we know it will be for a couple of weeks, and then it sort of disappears. And unfortunately, with the crop of candidates we have coming in 2016, actually Ben Carson is the only African American on either side. So it's probably not going to be brought up that much.
So, well, it should be brought up.
It should be.
Just because you're white, you shouldn't discuss it.
Yeah. No, I know it, of course.
A white person did the crime.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, the big thing this week, and that I've been hearing about a lot lately, is free speech and political correctness. So I don't know if you saw this, Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah,
just
don't go to political campuses.
Don't go to college campuses. They're too PC. Everything's racist or homophobic or
Bill
sexist.
Maher agreed with that.
So Bill Maher's been talking about even Larry the Cable Guy. So when you have Bill Maher, Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Larry the Cable Guy, all
well,
agree.
are campuses that way? Because I
have a sense that they are, that unfortunately we're teaching young people that anything that you say that is sort of out of the mainstream think is automatically evil. It's automatically racist and bigoted.
I totally, that shouldn't be. I'm funny. I love funny people. Lenny Bruce was a great friend of mine. George Carlin.
Yeah.
These guys ran against the grain and healthy comedy. A lot of it hits home, but it's true. Come on.
Yeah.
And college campuses is where irreverence should take place.
Yeah.
Why would a college campus be a place where you have to be politically correct? I would think a college campus would be the opposite.
Well, it's supposed to be the opposite, right? But somehow they go there and they somehow learn that anyone who says, so if you say anything that might sound slightly against women, that automatically you hate all women. Or if you believe in an economic policy that maybe isn't seen as redistributing the way that they want, then you're racist. There's just this strange.
No, but Bill Maher would not be popular on campuses.
Well, that's the irony. You know, Berkeley. Remember, Berkeley didn't want him to, or the kids at Berkeley didn't want him to speak, and then he did. But there was a petition to
portion of them.
A portion of them, and then of course they did allow him to speak. And
Seinfeld wouldn't be allowed to speak at a college.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't buy that. I mean, he says it, but
right.
Come on.
Well, the idea of Seinfeld, who of course is the most politically correct comedian of all time. Do you know?
He is.
How many times have you interviewed him? I'm sure
3 or 4, yeah.
And do you know any of his political beliefs?
And I was in a movie with him, the B movie.
Yeah,
I was Larry B. King. I was a B. In fact, more kids know me from that than anything else. I don't know what it's about, but that's fine.
Yeah. But doesn't that show you how silly the atmosphere is? If a guy that you don't know their political beliefs.
So why won't Seinfeld work a campus if that's what they want? Well,
he said that he based it around this silly gay joke that he made about a French king swiping an iPhone with a limp wrist, and he said, "Oh, people are saying that's homophobic." And, you know, of course that's not homophobic. It's just a silly joke. You would need a history. I think that's what people need to learn. You would need a history of saying something against a certain group of people for it to actually be bigoted or racist.
Rickles is hysterical, and but you take no prisoners. The great comedian takes no prisoners.
Yeah. You think a guy like Rickles could make it today?
He's funny. To me, if you're funny, you're funny. Yeah. Mel Brooks is the funniest man I've known. Funniest man I've ever seen, and Mel Brooks has it down.
Yeah.
Mel Brooks has the philosophy of humor. He has put it the best. Ready?
Yeah.
I'll give you the Mel Brooks philosophy. It applies to all cases at all times. If you fall down a manhole, it's funny. If I cut my finger, it's tragic.
So let's talk a little bit about the election. I'm very excited because this is it's a lot of hanging meat for a comedian. You know what I mean? These are just softballs they're going to throw up.
Yeah.
And so Donald Trump. Let's start with Donald Trump.
Donald is.
What do you make of this? Is this real? Is this
Donald
real?
is an old friend of mine. I'll tell you, there are two sides to Donald. He's a good person. He's a great father. He is a very successful businessman, and if you were in trouble, you could go to him. Donald has a good heart. Donald has an incredible ego, and Donald, you like Donald because there's no cutoff from brain to mouth. So as an interview, he's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
You want him.
Yeah.
Well, so he'll be refreshing. He will tell you exactly what however demented some of it may be, he will tell you exactly what he thinks about his fellow Republicans.
Yeah.
If I were a Republican candidate now, I would not look forward to this, because he will get attention, he'll get a percentage of the polls, he'll get on the debates, and
and then all hell could break loose, right? I mean, to me, I think you're totally right. He's going to walk out there.
He's going to be rapping these opponents. He's already rapped Jeb Bush terribly. He's going to take them on.
Yeah.
As he called George Bush the worst president until Obama came in to be the worst president. Tie for his worst. His two ties for the worst president are a Republican and a Democrat. Right?
Yeah, there you go.
But I think he's delightful. You know, I mean, you look at him as a...
So you're separating
He's not going to be president.
Right. So do you think is this real? Do you think he's really running for president? Because I have a sense that this is sort of, this is brand and ego. And then sometime around October, after a couple debates where I think he's going to do well, he'll say, I did it, and now.
Well, there's that side that says Donald could not stand going into a primary and losing.
Yeah.
Because that ego couldn't take a defeat.
Yeah.
My old friend Howard Cosell, the late Howard Cosell, a strong liberal, all of a sudden he's going to run for the Senate in New York, but he never was going to run because he couldn't take the fact that he would be voted down.
Yeah.
So maybe you're right. Maybe Donald will campaign a little and get out before the first vote saying, I've made my voice clear and I now endorse such and such.
All right, well,
But I don't think he wants to face an election.
Yeah.
But I like Donald Trump.
So what do you make of the rest of the Republicans? Because there's a ton of them. It's actually, people mock the Republican Party for not being an open party and all that. But
it's an open party.
But actually now, there is a woman, there is a black guy, there's a Hispanic guy. I mean, there's a lot of white guys. But they have broadened it. I'm not enamored with any of these guys, but they've done something.
Well, there are no moderate Republicans anymore. There used to be a great crew of moderate Republicans. There are no moderate Republicans. And there's very few moderate Democrats.
Yeah.
The Democrats are swinging. Elizabeth Warren seems to be the heart of the Democratic Party, and Hillary is moving more toward his one. So we have no centrists. And when there are no centrists, that's a danger in a republic. Mm-hmm. Because a republic needs compromise. It needs centrists. Hillary was a centrist senator. She was a very good, in fact, Lindsey Graham told me once he would be very comfortable if Hillary Clinton ran for national office because she could work with her.
Right.
And she was in the Senate. She knew how to give and take, and she could give up this to get that. That's very important. You have to do that.
Yeah, and which we don't do anymore,
we don't
right?
do
They, as you said, what McConnell said right when Obama got elected.
We're going to defeat him at every turn.
We're going to take this guy.
So we have that kind of hate, and that does, when I was a kid, first I could name every senator. I can't do that.
I won't make you do it now.
No, you don't. I won't. I wouldn't be able to do it. Number two, I knew that certain Barry Goldwater and John Kennedy were friends. So Republicans and Democrats went out and had dinner together. A conservative Mormon and a Democratic liberal, Ted Kennedy. Yeah. He spoke at his funeral. This is what America was. That's.
So is this just...
Another thing dangerous about it now is because of Congress, they come in on Tuesday and leave on Friday because they're constantly running for re-election on this 2-year thing. They don't live in Washington anymore. They take a room in Washington, they run back home to do things so they're not there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yeah, so then is money in politics really, is that what everything beyond everything else, is that
the worst Supreme Court decision of all time was that a corporation is a person, and that you can give any kind of money to any kind of thing, and it's freedom of speech.
Yeah.
That decision was horrendous, I think. So they've made a lot of horrendous decisions.
They're making a bunch of decisions now. Which way do you think they're going to go on gay marriage? People are saying it could be as early as this week.
I think Justice Kennedy will swing that way. I think he's always leant that way. I've spent some time with him, and I would say it's 5-4. They'll swing that, maybe even 6-3.
Yeah. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side of history on this
no,
one. They know it's happening anyway, right?
And on healthcare too.
Yeah.
If they throw out any major portion of this healthcare thing, you got 13 million people are on it.
Yeah.
Healthcare is a fact, and while you can look back and go, what would the Constitution? Come on.
Yeah.
We're the only industrialized nation in the world until Obama had this that didn't have a healthcare plan, and health is a right. I think it's a right.
So jumping back to the money in politics, I would be remiss if we didn't mention Bernie Sanders in all this.
I love Bernie.
You love Bernie. Okay, so can a 70-something-year-old Brooklyn Jew, socialist, self-proclaimed socialist, can he actually affect this election? I think he can nudge it.
Nudge it, but not affect it.
Yeah.
No, because he'll make a nice impact, and people, he's. I love Bernie, and Bernie will have his say, and he'll be an excellent debater. But Hillary's going to get the nomination, and Bernie will campaign for her, and so will Elizabeth Warren, and the Democrats will come behind Hillary. The Republicans will come behind whoever the nominee is.
Bush, is it going to? I mean, are we really going to have a Clinton Bush? Is that, if you had to guess?
People make like that's bad. I think that would be a good race.
But isn't this why we left England?
I like Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush is very intelligent. I've known him a long time.
Yeah.
Hillary and Jeb, I hope, would be a clean discussion of the issues, fair discussion, interesting.
Yeah.
I would look forward to that.
Yeah. Do you think that would be a battle of ideas, though? To me, what I want to see is a battle of ideas. I want to see something like Rand Paul versus Bernie, where it's really two people, one a libertarian, the other one a socialist, who really have ideas, and really let's have an actual engagement of ideas, versus Jeb and Hillary. We know what it is. We know
America
right?
would never accept Rand Paul versus Bernie Sanders. That would be. An independent would move in and win that.
Yeah. I knew you'd give me one piece of wisdom here.
Listen to that. Pay attention to that.
We got it. All right. Well, thank you, Larry King. A pleasure as always.
It's great to be here on the Rubin Report.